speed. A little bit oversteer. Turn 2. Let's take full throttle to here. There we go, beginning to pick these up now. Beginning to get the hang of this track a little bit now. Where the corners are coming up next. Finding your reference points. 7. Late apex 8. Blind 9. Go! A little nothingy king of 10 down into the hairpin of 11. Brake super late. There's the apex. Jumps about. Furious on! Oh wow! Heavy braking for 12.
You have 2 additional sets of exercise for this race.
Going off
Move
track.
and have put in plenty of fuel to finish the race. Green flag next time by. The estimated SOS is
Technical intersection. 13.
1,685. Line up on the
14.
inside. Pit road is closed.
Now you turn into 15. Hoping somebody's not coming up the inside of you, trying to overtake you. And then this wonderful quadruple apex. 16, 17, 18. Wow, that's incredible. Into 19, too much curb. Final corner, hit straight. Oh, what a wonderful experience. Can't believe McLaren have given me this car on this amazing racetrack. Painted to yourself in the 2023 McLaren. It was just extraordinary.
Yeah, the lucky thing, he's driven a few, but that's clearly one that he's particularly enjoying. The strange vein is this, I know you've driven over several years, James, but we know this is built on ground that moves around a lot. So therefore, on this track, every time you come here, is it an exploration of where the bumps have moved to?
Yeah, but also they are relaying it quite a lot.
Yeah.
And over the last 2 years, they've relayed parts of this track. So it's forever changing, and it's forever changing not just for the driver, but what the car is feeling in terms of how much plank weight you're getting. So yeah, it's a fun track. It's also really tricky because a lot of the apexes, as Martin was saying, you can't see turn 1. You also can't see turn 11. You can't see turn 19. When you're arriving at turn 19, it's 170 plus miles an hour, and not able to pick out that apex curve. That's why they've made this really fat white line on the exit of turn 19, so the drivers can kind of see
What's up, boy? Run
So
clean and
it's
stay green. Let's
a
go.
modern classic, we call it that. But yes, it's not the old school Spa or Suzuka or Silverstone, but on the modern tracks, the track, I think a lot of them think that this is one of the better ones.
It's got a little bit of everything. It's got fast corners at the beginning, and then it's got some
Lights are high.
some slower corners later in the lap. And it's a permanent circuit. You know, it's always here, which always makes it
Green,
feel
green,
a little extra classic and traditional. That it never changes from the way it is. But as you guys were talking about with the bumps, I mean, as drivers, you know, you go to a track and you can service it, it can change the whole thing. So the bumps absolutely play into how it feels out there.
Steps to this one, the march a little bit.
Hold it steady. What you get? You don't have to move around as much as you like. coward. I say you should never do that.
Yo, guys, watch out for the hot dog.
You guys get real wiggly up front. I see the mind game that's
I need you guys
Good job, Black Car.
Drag the brake a little bit. Car party. Hey, Benjamin, you want to check up? You're not going to share very well or correctly. Exactly what I'm up to. Yeah, Barb. I'll try to get there as soon as I can. I'm pretty much down of it anyway.
Idiot, didn't even know I went under him.
I'll beat you. Yeah, I saw that one coming.
Just over 15 minutes to go until the start of the qualifying here.
Left on two, cowboy.
US Grand Prix, that was quite well. The atmosphere, as I said, because so many fans coming in, capacity goes up year in, year out. You just tell by
Yeah,
the
this
amount of
was
people
Berkeley and drive straight the whole time. I knew he was going to turn
out
before.
on the track. It's become one of the events on the calendar. Let's talk about
Hey, sorry,
Mercedes
gentlemen.
so far in this show. George Russell in 5th in the sprint.
Yeah, two's all over the place.
Second sprint. It's the way that he's performed consistently since the summer break. Now he's got knocked down his contract.
We're in a podium position.
Really consistent all year. He's had 8 podiums, 2 wins, coming off of Singapore, signed the contract. According to him, and speaking about his contract, maybe cleaned up a little bit of the personal life outside of driving the race car with some of the responsibilities to give him a chance to recover and, be the best athlete he can possibly be. So I feel like George is absolutely in the best form and in the best place in his life. And it's fun to watch. It's you know, I know that he said that we don't have the
Check
speed
up on the back.
in qualifying. We did not have the speed
Yeah.
to be on the pole, but look, you need some luck along the way, as we've seen what happens with bad luck. So second in the sprint was an awesome result, and but you can feel he's just hungry to be the quickest and not get lucky
Pit
into
road is now
those
open.
situations.
I'm quite interested to hear from Toto about what he says. Perhaps it was a mistake to flirt with Max Verstappen, and actually he's really happy with George Russell and Kimi. That's his team going forward. What did he make
Well,
of
I'm
those?
glad he thinks that, because he's just signed them both.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's lovely that they've committed and they can really focus on building next year's car. And you know, you need both drivers on board with the preparations for next year already, because it's so different in terms of the driver feel and the driver feedback you'll get from the car. So that it's key. But really impressive this year, George. One of the best out there, I would say, in terms of his performances, his consistency, and also the race pace in the sprint was good. Much better than that 7/10 delta they had in the sprint.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's go to the Sky Pad. All yours, Karun.
Thank you, Simon. 20 corners around here, the Circuit of the Americas. Let's take a look with Max Verstappen. Yesterday, up in turn 1, had a little bit of rear movement. That put him slightly wide. But this next sector is where the Red Bull really was fantastic. Max gained nearly 1/10 on Lando Norris here. Look at the speed. He's charging through this entire sector lap, all the way from turn 2 to turn 9. The steering wheel never straight. But the car really reacting while riding the bumps better than it did at the start of the weekend, and that will be critical because this is a bumpy track. So once you get through the first sector of the lap and you come through to the end of the lap, turn 19, this is where people will be struggling with track limits. We saw Gabriel Bortoleto have his lap disallowed. He started to sprint to the back of the grid because of that. Liam Lawson thought he was slightly put off by that Ferrari. He ended up going off and losing that lap as well. So watch out. We are seeing lots of drivers going off track at turn 19 and getting a track limits violation. Isaac Hadjar had different problems. He had traffic in the way, and this would be an issue, particularly in Q1 when we've got all 20 cars on track. Look at this, complete mess. It's a blind apex anyway into 19. We've got all these cars dawdling around. It's a complete nightmare. Now in the pit lane yesterday, there was a traffic jam heading out. Nico Hulkenberg was queued up behind. There was another car sitting at the end of the pit lane in front of him, so he couldn't go. Yuki Tsunoda was in the back of this queue. And now eventually, when they got out there, it was just mayhem. They're all battling for position, trying to get to the line as quickly as possible, but they didn't. And some of them, including Yuki Tsunoda, missed it, as we'll see here. If I just switch to the other clip, as they come through, you know, he's battling with other cars, and this will be an issue in the first part of qualifying. They're all trying to get the optimal track positioning for starting the lap. But if you don't get the timing right, and if you get caught in that traffic jam, because guess what? You can't control what the other 18 cars are doing who are not in your team, then you will end up in the situation like Tsunoda and end up missing the final lap. So hopefully the drivers will all figure out a better way to get through and get their final lap. Ted, what have you got out in the pit lane?
The bonfire nights come early, Karun. It's not a sparkler, but it's a drill on the new floor for Fernando Alonso's car. Come around here, Kieran, we can actually see what the mechanic is doing. When you put on a new floor, of course, Alonso's right rear was taken off by the incident cannoning into everything in the first corner. When you put a new floor on, you just have to chamfer down the edges just by that Cognizant logo, just to make sure everything is within tolerances. So a lot of work going on at Aston Martin. Yeah, and Lance Stroll's car as well, to the right front of him, but it was Stroll's fault, and he's picked up a penalty for the race, a grid drop in 3 places for the race for going into Esteban Ocon. Look at the calm compared to the George Russell and Kimi Antonelli side of the Mercedes garage. Nothing going on there. They kept it clean. Russell will be hoping for more than his 5th on the grid, the sprint qualifying. Antonelli certainly hoping for more than 11th that he was on Friday. Let's have a quick look inside the Red Bull Racing garage. They've got to be careful because Max Verstappen said that the car is good over 1 lap, but not good enough in the race. So they don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, figuratively speaking, because it's good over 1 lap. So that car tells its own story. Look at Max just there talking to Helmut Marko. Cool, calm and collected under the Texan sun, Simon. Just sums it up for the reigning world champion.
Yeah, it's been vintage Max Verstappen for the last 3 race weekends. But I just want to know, actually, with regards to what we saw yesterday in sprint qualifying, any reason to believe there'd be any difference today? Track temperature sort of the same-ish?
No, I think maybe the McLaren drivers could look at the last couple of corners and look where they were looking at, losing out to Max and taking a bit more of a risk there. So there's always room for improvement. But I think you're going to be looking at the same top 3, just in which order.
I mean, I think that Max pulled off a really spectacular lap yesterday. It'll probably be McLaren, but they're on the back foot after earlier today.
Well, would anyone have benefited from the fact that they have learned something from everything we've seen in sprint qualifying? We shall see, because we're moments away from actual qualifying, US Grand Prix.
Green, green, green. P3 going clear. Every car clear. 15, 40, 1, 5, 4. Back in the
Get some.
You just give me a horse up. Here we go.
Good race, gentlemen.
Hey 20, what the fuck was that? That is the shittiest drive I've ever seen. He went and posted and threw into the whole field. You can fight for it, you can have position, but why you hit him so hard? Clean race up until that. Good run on it.
Yeah, thanks. Good race, everybody.
So from Hookham